Hey y'all, it's me, Shyron Persephone, back with book 7, I believe, of my year of reading women. And I chose a collection of short stories called There Once Lived a Woman Who Tried to Kill Her Neighbor's Baby by Ludmilla Petrushevskaya, I think. That was my best attempt. But I'll just call her Ludmilla from here on out. But Ludmilla is one of the most respected and renowned living Russian authors. She started her career, I think she's like 81 or something now. She started her career writing plays because she did live in Soviet Russia, which was heavy on the censorship for artists and thinkers. And I guess with plays, they weren't as censored as like prose was. So she wrote prose, but she didn't publish it until the USSR was no longer a thing in the 90s. But she was very well known as a playwright, and then later on as a novelist and short story writer. This is a collection. It was put together in 2009 by Keith Gesson and Anna Summers, who also did the translation from Russian to English. And it is described as scary fairy tales. I initially picked it up because I went through about a 10-year phase, a very long phase of pretty much exclusively reading fairy tale retellings. I did read other stuff, but the vast majority of what I read was fairy tale retellings. And I had initially thought that this was retellings of well-known fairy tales. But it's actually not. They're totally original tales with sort of a fairy tale element to them. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 19 stories in here. So you can see it's pretty short. So they're pretty short stories. They're fairy tales. So of course they have a slight fantastical element to them. They're a bit surreal. They're macabre. They're also bleak as hell, which I think is why she was so heavily censored. Her stories aren't overtly political, but they really don't paint a pretty picture of life in Soviet Russia. So the government was probably like, this makes us look bad. You're not publishing this. Yeah, the stories are very bleak and dreary. The first couple especially reminded me a little bit of Roald Dahl's short stories for adults. If you've never read those, they're incredible. I highly recommend them. But they are also very macabre. But whereas Roald Dahl has sort of a darkly comedic element, these do not. They're just completely bleak and dreary, like I said before. And on the surface, they seem very simple. And I don't know if that's how Ludmilla wrote it or how it was translated. But they seem very simple when you read them. And then it's not until you let it simmer a little bit and you sit with it and you think about it that your mind starts to take it deeper. Like, oh, that's what that meant. Like you really have to sit with them a minute before they sink in. My favorite story, there was one about a pair of dancer sisters that was cursed by a magician. So they became one huge big fat lady, and for 2 hours every night they split into two people and dance for 2 hours. It's just a really interesting story, and it was the one that sort of was the most fairy tale-ish for me. There was another story that sort of stuck with me called The Father. Both of these stories are sort of near the end of the book. And I don't even really know how to describe this story to make it, to be fair to the story, because it's just, I don't know. I can't really describe it, but it was one of the ones that sort of stuck with me. Here's a picture of Ludmilla here on the back. Can you see it? She's a very fabulous old lady. She still lives in Russia. Her son is very active on social media. So if you follow the hashtag of her name, which I'm not going to try to pronounce again, he usually uses that hashtag. So you can sort of see what she's up to and see what her family is up to. But just in general, the whole book, there were some hits and misses. Like I said, some of the stories were very, very simple. And even when you sat and thought about them, they didn't gain much more depth. But then other stories really sunk in. I would still very much recommend reading it, because the stories that do stand out are very good. And like I said, she's a very well-respected and well-known author in her native Russia. She also has another collection put together by the same translator, which is called There Once Lived a Girl Who Seduced Her Sister's Husband and He Hanged Himself. Love stories, which I get the feeling they might be about love, but they're not exactly romantic. If you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen me. I left, excuse me, I left a copy of this book out on Valentine's Day as a book fairy. So I left a copy in the flower section of the grocery store for someone to find on Valentine's Day. I have not read this collection yet, it's very rare for me to leave a book that I haven't actually read, but I felt comfortable because I have read the author and I enjoyed her. So I figure I'll probably enjoy this as well. I'll probably get to it, not this year because I don't have it on my list. I tried not to repeat authors, because there were so many authors I wanted to get to. So for my year of reading women, I probably won't get to this unless I really just go through a lot of books, more than I was expecting. But I did really enjoy this, and I'm glad I included it. I realized after I made the list, as much as I was trying to include a diverse selection of authors, most of them ended up being American. So I am glad that I put her on here just to get more of a worldly voice, even though Russian people are still white, but whatever. There's only a couple of other authors on my list that are not American, which, I was more concerned about racial diversity and I don't want to say gender diversity, but like LGBTQ diversity, not so much nationality diversity. But yeah, I have found this several times at the used bookstore. I think that's where I got it the first time. And then I found a couple copies to leave as a book fairy. So you might get lucky and find it at a used bookstore. If not, you could probably find it at your local indie bookstore or have them order it for you. A lot of indie bookstores are really good about, because they are small, they're really good about, if you can't find a certain book that you're looking for, they'll go ahead and order it for you. But they should. This was a pretty popular book when it first came out, so I would imagine that they would have at least one copy on their shelves. But yeah, check out my Instagram post about it. Follow me on Instagram at Shy1Persephone. Subscribe to this channel for more of my Year of Reading Women. If you're just specifically interested in my Year of Reading Women, you can follow hashtag my Year of Reading Women on Instagram, and you'll just get those posts as opposed to all my other bookish posts that I put out on my Instagram page. But I will be back in a little bit with another book. Bye.